In this sponsored tutorial, we're going to take a look at the WebARX security plugin for WordPress and a bunch of other platforms. It's not just for WordPress. I use them personally on my sites to secure them and make sure they're safe. I'm going to show you all the options and features this plugin could provide to your site if you want it to. If you have any questions throughout this video, please leave them down below. I'll try to answer them the best I can. And my name is Bjorn Allpass from WP Learning Lab, where we help you get better at WordPress so you can earn more for yourself, for your clients, and for your business. If you like that kind of thing, make sure to click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we're getting started right now. This is the WebARX plugin website. There's a lot of information on this site. We'll go through a lot of it during this course, this tutorial. But if you want more information, please go ahead and check out the link in the description down below. It'll take you here to webarxsecurity.com. I'm going to go ahead and start this tutorial off by logging into my account by clicking on Login. I've had an account with WebARX for over a year now, I think. And I'm very happy with the work they do and with the results I've had. The very first thing you see when you log in is this dashboard. I've got a number of sites in here, as you can see in this list, and it shows for these sites uptime in this column. This site down here has been down for quite a while. I'm not really using it anymore. I used to use it for the demos on this channel. Now I don't really use it that much anymore. SSL certificate issues on these sites. These sites don't have SSLs right now. These ones do, so those are fine. This one doesn't have one either. They should have one. I have to get on that. Too much to do these days. These ones have a security risk issue, and the firewalls are all turned on for all of these, and the content management system running on these sites is WordPress, which you can see here. And that implies, of course, that WebARX works with other platforms and not just WordPress. If we head back to the home page and scroll down a bit, we see that WebARX is also compatible with just plain PHP websites, WordPress, as we know, Magento, Drupal, and Joomla. So all the major players that are self-hosted, WebARX will work with. And up here in this widget, we see how many attacks are blocked. This is for all the websites on your account. If you hover over any, it shows you a breakdown of which sites were blocking or which sites blocked attacks. And it has uptime monitoring, which ones are up, which ones are down. GoTime Learning is also a site that's not being used right now, so that's down as well. And so we can see at a glance the condition of our sites. If we want more details, we click into one of these. Let's click into my main website. So on page 2, WP Learning Lab, 100% uptime, no blacklists, no mentions, has an SSL, no security risk, has a firewall. Everything is gravy on the main site. That's really the one that's the main focus. So it's good that that one is doing well. By clicking on there, we see how many attacks have been blocked. 30,000 to date. This is week 32 of the year, and it shows how many attacks this week. I know which days they were. And to the right, it shows our uptime. And if there is any downtime, it shows you when it was. And before I get into too much detail in the dashboard, let's actually install WebARX on a website. Let's go back out to here. Let's click on Add New Websites. And I'm going to put it on Let's Build with WP.com. Copy that URL, paste it in here. Click on Add Website. Click on Close. It says it takes roughly 10 minutes before it starts showing data. You need to set up the plugin. So let's go to Setup Plugin. Here we can enter a username and password to do an auto install. Instead, I'm going to click on I want to install the plugin manually. Click on Download. Downloads it to our hard drive. And this plugin is specific to this website. So don't try to install this plugin on another website you're setting up in WebARX because it won't work. Go to Plugins, Add New, Upload Plugin, choose File. This is the one that was just downloaded. Open that, install, activate plugin. Verify plugin installation. Plugin has been installed and properly activated. And now we have to wait, like it said, about 10 minutes for data to start appearing here. Let's go back to our dashboard. The site should be added here already, and here it is right here. Firewall is activated currently. Everything's green check marks, and that's great. We'll see what happens once it's set up and it's been collecting data for a little while. Maybe it's going to find some issues. But now if we go into the site, this is the WebARX settings page in the WordPress install. I'm going to go through all these in detail in a minute. First, let's go to the dashboard. There is a WebARX widget that now appears on our dashboard, which shows how many attacks have been blocked. Right now it's 0, of course, because we just installed it. But if we log into an older site, like my main site, that has had attacks blocked recently, we'll see there's some data. So here we are on WPLearningLab.com, and we see 13 attacks blocked. Software has to be updated. This refers to plugins. There's quite a few. I'm falling behind in my work this summer. Summer's pretty busy around here with all these kids running around. But there's work to do, and we are blocking attacks, which is fantastic because that kind of delays how much work we have to do. If attacks are being blocked, then they're not hitting vulnerabilities in our plugins and sign-in pages and things like that. So it helps. It helps having something like WebARX on your site. You don't have to update everything instantly, even though you still probably should. So let's close this site down and head back into the one where we freshly installed WebARX, and let's go to settings and then security. This is where you set all the security settings for a website. And if you're running WebARX, you don't need a whole lot of other security because it covers pretty much all your bases. We're going to go through each of these options in as much detail as necessary to not A, waste your time, but B, give you a good understanding of what it's capable of and how it can protect your site. Before we go through all these, if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. I'll try to answer them as best I can. Probably some of the WebARX guys might be in the comments. They might be answering comments as well. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. The first option we have is hardening. And all these options are turned off by either checking or unchecking the boxes. And some of them are on by default. All the options that we're going to see right now, they're on all by default. When we installed the plugin, these are all the ones that were checked. So disable plugin and theme edit. Pretty self-explanatory. People can't edit plugins and themes source code through the WordPress admin. You can normally do that by going to Appearance and then Editor, which you'll see is now missing because we have this checked. Move the logs folder moves the logs outside of the default location in the root directory. So a hacker or someone snooping around your site doesn't know where to find them. And logs just contain activity information on your site or error information. Errors that have happened go into a log file. And potentially if someone can read those log files, might be able to find some vulnerabilities on your site because certain errors might be due to a vulnerability. This option disables or disallows WP Scan from scanning your site. And WP Scan, so let's go to their website, is a vulnerability scanner. The only reason you'd be using this is if you're a security professional and you're being hired by a company to help secure their site, or you're a researcher looking for new vulnerabilities and trying to contact the plugin developers and theme developers before it becomes a problem, or you're a hacker trying to figure out what vulnerabilities are on a site. This blocks that scan from working on your site, so that's important to have checked. Disable user enumeration. This helps block hackers from getting usernames on your site. So in addition to disabling the basic information from the WP Scan, we also are able to hide the WordPress version from WP Scan Advanced Fingerprinting. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Check this box. It doesn't hurt your site, but it blocks some information about your site from getting out there and getting into the wrong hands. The Enable Activity Log option allows you to create a file, or the plugin creates a file, that registers all the activity by all users on your site. If you have a lot of users, that file can get really large, but the information you find in there can also be quite interesting, quite enlightening. So if you feel that there's some kind of security issue with some users on your site, you can check this. I don't know if every site needs to have this enabled. I think you might want to do this if you think there might be something going on, or leave it checked. And if in the future something is going on, at least you have the data to refer back to and tie to specific users on your site. Disable XML RPC. This is a file in the root of your WordPress install. It's a common attack vector for brute force attacks. Hackers used to attack login pages, they still do, but there's plugins that will restrict login attempts. So if you have too many failed logins, they're not going to let you try logging in anymore. But the XML RPC file is still there, and they can use that to brute force a login into your site. So it's a good idea to block this if you're not using the WordPress mobile app. The mobile app relies on this file. So if you're using that file or the mobile app, you need this file, do not disable it. Or if you're posting to your site via email, you may not have known this, but you can send an email to a specific secret email address, which will post the content of that email to your WordPress site. That also happens via this file. So if you're doing that, make sure this is unchecked. We can add reCAPTCHA to our comments, our login form, registration form, password reset form. We can choose which option, version 2 normal, version 2 invisible. And if you do want to use reCAPTCHA, enter your site key and your secret key here, and just click on Save Settings when you're all done. We haven't changed anything, so we're just going to keep it as is. Under Firewall, we have a lot more options. This first option allows you to turn the firewall on and off. I suggest you turn it on. That's one of the big reasons you want to get a plugin like WebARX, is because of the firewall to help protect your site. So this should probably be on. We can block IPs for a certain number of minutes after a certain number of block requests over a certain period of time. So in this case, if an IP has been blocked 10 times in the past 30 minutes, we block the IP for 60 minutes. And these aren't just random IPs that are blocked. The firewall collects data from all the firewall installations that it has on the internet. So wherever WebARX is installed and the firewall is enabled, they share data with each other. They collect data anonymously so they can figure out which IPs are suspicious, and those will be automatically blocked. That's what a firewall does. And so this isn't just random IPs that are blocked. These are IPs that are suspicious, that probably aren't regular users on these websites. And we can choose which roles are whitelisted from the firewall. So if you're the admin of your site and you're logged in, obviously you don't want the firewall to apply to you because your activities might not look like a regular user's activities on your site. So you might get blocked. So make sure you're not blocked by checking the user roles that shouldn't be blocked. And I would say every user role except for subscriber, probably, because subscribers could be anybody, really. If you go to settings and then general, here we allow anyone to register. So if we have this box checked, anyone can register, and their user role is subscriber, then make sure that subscriber is unchecked because we want to make sure that we filter those users against the firewall because that could be anybody, if anybody's allowed to register. If you don't have anyone can register as checked and all the registrations happen through a membership plugin, through a payment gateway, through you doing it manually, then you can go ahead and check all of these and have them all whitelisted because it's pretty annoying for users of your site when they're being blocked when they're actually legitimate users. So you want to make sure that you whitelist as many as possible. And again, make sure this is unchecked if you're whitelisting all user roles. The next set of options involve the htaccess file. The htaccess file is one of the most important files on your website in regards to security. It exists in the root of your website, or sometimes it doesn't exist. Your site usually doesn't have to have one unless you set permalinks, which is pretty much every WordPress site, come to think of it. But if you don't have permalinks set, for whatever reason, you may not actually have an htaccess file. That's okay. WebARX will create one. They're easy to create. You just create a .htaccess. The dot means it's a hidden file. So when you're in the root of your website looking at all the files, you may not be able to see it because the dot means it's hidden. But you can show hidden files. It's one of the settings inside of the file manager in cPanel, for example. So this first checkbox stops WebARX from writing to your htaccess file. All the existing rules that are there will stay, but they won't add any further rules. Like for example, down below we have IP lists, IP whitelists, IP blacklists. Those are written into your htaccess file. So if you want those to be updated or updatable by the plugin, you need to keep this unchecked. Add security headers is a great thing to check. Prevent default WordPress file access, great thing to check because you don't want people just accessing files on your server. You want people to access the blog posts and pages and things, but not random files like the license file or the README files, the config sample files. Restrict access to all those by checking this box. Block access to the debug log. That's usually where errors appear. Errors can point to vulnerabilities on your site, so make sure you block access to that by checking this box. Disable index views prevents folders on your site from showing a listing of the files in that folder. For example, the plugin folder. If you're browsing through your file manager, you might notice that every folder has an index.php file. And the index.php file is the one that loads by default. And quite often it's blank, or it has a PHP comment in there that says silence is golden. And you might wonder, what on earth is this? That is preventing index views. That's preventing a website from listing the contents of that folder. If that were not there, a hacker or anybody could go to, for example, thiswebsite.com/plugins/ and then see a list of all the plugins installed on the site if the index file is not there. So whether it's there or not, check this box and it'll prevent that kind of activity on your site. The option to forbid proxy commenting is an important option because proxy commenting usually points to somebody not being legitimate because they're hiding behind a proxy. Why would they do that? Some people do it for privacy and security reasons on their own. So they might use browsers like Tor, or they might have proxy IPs that they just want to keep themselves secret, which is fine. Those people will be blocked from commenting. But I think that's a small percentage of the population. Most of the people using proxies are using some kind of comment bot, some kind of spam bot to post as many comments around the internet as possible without leaving a footprint. This will help reduce those spam comments. Prevent image hot linking is a good thing to do because it can steal bandwidth from your site. Hot linking is basically, there's an image on your site. Let's say, for example, let's go look at the site. This image right here, we can just copy the URL, copy image address. We can open this in a new page. So we have this image. Somebody can just take this URL and put that image on their website, but they're not loading it. Basically, you're becoming the content delivery network for somebody else's website. and that's image hot linking. They're displaying images on their website that are hosted on your server, and so it's using your bandwidth to deliver them, and you don't want to have that happen. So check this box. It's not checked by default because sometimes this can cause issues. So check this box, save it, go to your site, clear cache, and see if there are any problems. If there are no problems, keep this turned on. It's a good thing to have turned on. Here you can add custom htaccess rules if you know any, if you want to add any. Here it says, if they throw an error, they'll be automatically removed. So WebARX is designed to be as compatible with your site as possible. So anything that causes an error, WebARX will shut it down to make sure you don't have a broken website. Here you can define where to add your custom rules to the bottom or the top of the WebARX rules. In this field, you can add a blocked IP list or a blacklist. Here's some rules. So you can add specific IPs. You can add a whole range of IPs using these options. Here you can whitelist IPs, maybe your IP you want to have whitelisted, but you can whitelist them here if you have any to whitelist. Then click on Save Settings and your firewall is configured. Let's go back up to the top. Login protection. If you have a login protection plugin, you don't need it because we have it here. If you have a plugin that allows you to move your login page, you don't need it because we have it here. First option, we hide the WP login, WP admin page from attackers. Those are default locations for pretty much every WordPress install. Every hacker knows they're there, so they can easily get to your login page. Check this box, enter something here like rhinoceros. It's probably spelled incorrectly. I haven't spelled rhinoceros in a long time. Maybe that's it. Your website /rhinoceros is not a place a hacker is going to go to look for a login page. So this is effectively hidden from a hacker. The only catch is you have to remember what this is, because if you don't remember what it is, you can't get there either. So if you do use this option, make sure you remember whatever it is you put in here. Maybe don't make it as complicated as rhinoceros, or maybe do. Maybe that'll be more memorable for you. I'm going to uncheck this for now. Automatic brute force IP ban. So anytime somebody tries to brute force a login page, as in they have a whole bunch of failed login attempts, this option blocks them. And here we set how many attempts over how long of a period and how long they'll be blocked. Logon hours. This is an interesting option. This allows you to set only specific hours that the login page will work. So if you are the only person or people in your office that are located in your town are the only people who are logging into your site and your office is open from say 8 to 5, then you set those hours. You have this from 8 to, that's not 5, 8 to 1700. Outside of those times, login page won't work. Disabled. Nobody can log in. If you have outsourcers logging onto your site and they're from all over the world, this option wouldn't work for you. But like I said, if you're the only one logging in or your team is and are located in one location, this is a great option to have to limit logins to your site. Two-factor authentication allows you to enable two-factor authentication. So whenever you log in, you would get a code to your phone that you also have to enter after you log in. This is great if the hacker does not have your phone or did not clone your SIM card. The likelihood of them doing that is pretty slim, but it does happen. In fact, there's a case recently where hackers got people's name and phone number, and they called the phone company saying they lost their phones and actually got a cloned phone, got a new phone that the phone company sent them. Then they could do two-factor authentication going to your phone, which is now in their hands. It's a new one. And then they're able to log into credit cards and all that kind of stuff, and they stole a bunch of money. So two-factor authentication is not foolproof. Let me take that back. Two-factor authentication is foolproof as long as it's being used properly, as long as the phone company is not handing out new phones to people it shouldn't be handing it out to. So the technology itself works great as long as the humans involved do things properly. Here it shows a list of currently blocked IPs. These are the ones that will be blocked due to failed login attempts. Whitelisted IPs. These are ones that can't be blocked. For example, if your grandma logs into your site a lot and she forgets her password all the time and she tries to log in 20 times before she gets in, that'd be a great IP to add in here so she can log in no matter how many times she's failed her logins. Click on Save Settings when you're ready. The cookie notice, you may have another plugin for this. You don't need it because WebARX has this functionality. You can enable this. This is quite common in EU websites. It's becoming more and more common in all other websites because of GDPR. But it started in the EU, just a little banner that pops up like all the plugins create. And you can go through and set those options as you see fit. The logs, this is a log of everything that's happened on your site in the last 2 weeks for the firewall. The activity log is everything that's happened on your site for the past 2 weeks for just regular user activity. all of that will be listed here. htaccess backup and recovery. The htaccess file is quite sensitive. A wrong move in there can take down your site. It's always good to have backups of important things. You should be backing up your whole site, for one, and the database on a regular schedule. And backing up important files that are changed frequently by, say, a plugin like this might be smart as well. Just click on this button to back it up to the web server. Click on this button to back it up to your hard drive or download to your hard drive. And if you back it up to your web server, you can go ahead and choose a backed up version and restore to that if you want to. If something goes wrong, you can restore to an older version of your htaccess file. You can also reset the htaccess file back to WordPress defaults. This will delete everything except for the WordPress defaults. It doesn't remember any htaccess rules you had on there before WebARX was on there, which can happen. There's a lot of stuff you can do in your htaccess file. So you might have other rules in there that will be gone if you reset your htaccess file. So keep that in mind. Backup files and database recovery. And you can have your backups stored on Google Drive and you can restore them with just a few clicks. That's what I was talking about a minute ago. Having backups of everything is very, very important. License information is exactly that. License information. Keep the API client ID and API client secret key secret because they should be secret. Only you should know about them. After all of that, we've configured WebARX on our website. But what if you're doing this on multiple websites? It could be a pain to go through this plugin and all these options and log into each site and set them all and do all that through each website. Luckily, we can do it inside a WebARX dashboard. If we go into our dashboard again, let's go back into wplearninglab.com. We have this information we saw earlier, attacks blocked, attacks uptime, and we have the information that we saw in the website also inside of WebARX. Here we have our firewall. The firewall is picking up all kinds of activity. WP Scan tried searching for vulnerabilities. There's attempted SQL injection right here. Cross-site scripting attempts. And there are 30,000 of these to go through. Better to have the plugin just block all these. These are things you wouldn't even know was happening if you didn't have a firewall installed. When was this? Like 11:46 last night? I was sleeping. I'm not going to know this is happening, but the plugin saw it, blocked it. Easy peasy. Here we can decide when we're notified of something going on the site. When there's new software vulnerabilities, when our site goes down for a certain number of times in a row, when the domain name is expiring, SSL expiring, malware, crypto miners, errors, blacklist entries, mentioned in a hacker community. So if hackers are mentioning your site like, hey, this site's vulnerable, go check it out. Or hey, let's team up and hack this site over here. This might be a great thing to have. So you know that they're talking about your site or your client site. You can also configure Slack integration. So instead of receiving these via email, you have a Slack channel for these. Click on Manage Website, and we can manage this information that we see here. Pretty basic information. API and secret key, those are the guys you're supposed to keep secret. And you can download the plugin again if you need to. Downloads right to your hard drive. Under uptime logs, we see our uptime. Here we had a connection error, internal server error. That was last month. Stuff happens. I mess around with stuff on my site. Stuff happens. That 500 error was probably me tweaking something and making a typo somewhere. Happens all the time. You undo your typo, the site comes back up. So it's not that big of a deal. You can choose the date range to look through and also what you want to see. Just errors or all. Because you might get a lot of 200, which means it's okay. So you might get a lot of those showing up, but you want to just see your errors. So just choose errors. You have a slimmed down list of uptime on your site. Activity logs shows activity on your site. Here we have somebody using Bjorn Allpass from China trying to log in. That's not the username. That's not my username on the website. So this is somebody trying to hack in, brute force this site, and they're coming from all over the place. Luckily, I have it set so the plugin blocks failed login attempts. There are almost 100,000 entries in here, and most of them are people trying to hack in or brute force the site. So that's awesome. Under hardening, clearly it thinks the website has an outdated plugin. So we'll try looking at that on our new website. Let's go to software first. Here we have a list of plugins, all the ones that are out of date. We can view the change log of the plugin, and we can click on update and update it right from here, or click on update all plugins, update them all right here. We have a list of users. There are a lot of users on this website. This is the WP Learn That website. These are all customers. These are people who have bought courses, and of course they need to access them. So they're all users on this site. Under firewall rules, We can choose these two sets of firewall rules and just apply them to our website automatically by clicking on these two options. Under monitoring, we saw this at the very beginning. It shows all the different tests the plugin does on your site on a regular basis, and mine needs to be rescanned. I need to do a bit of work on the site, update plugins and things like that. Then I got to rescan, or it scans automatically a couple times a day, I believe. So you don't have to rescan all the time. It will rescan, but if you're doing work trying to improve these things, you might want to rescan whenever you make an improvement. So let's head back to our new website dashboard, which is this one right here, and see if we can get into our hardening tab. Here's our hardening tab. So this contains all the options that we set inside of our plugin in the WordPress dashboard. The hardening options, you might recall that was the hardening tab in the dashboard. The firewall options, login protection, cookie notice. You can set all these right here, and you can set them for all websites that have a plugin that's more updated than version 1.3.3, as we saw earlier. And so you don't have to go into each website and do it. You can do it all right from your dashboard here. Under firewall management inside the dashboard, we again have these rules. And if you're really good at firewall rules, you can create your own. You can create a new rule by clicking on new rule. And I'm not really good at this, so I'm not the one making these rules. But somebody is making these rules, and they created these two rule blocks for you. But if you're good at making these rules, you can make your own right in here, which is pretty awesome. Under reports, we can send out reports to, say, a client who is paying us to secure their site and keep it secure. These reports contain information that the client will want to see, and even information they don't want to see, but they'll be impressed with all the stuff you're doing, all the stuff this service is doing for them and for their site. You can white label it by adding your logo URL, so it's going to add your logo to it, and that's the extent of the white labeling for those reports. Billing invoices, pretty self-explanatory. Under team, you can have sub-users, so you can have people on your team come into your WebARX dashboard and do the work. And the changelog shows changes to WebARX itself. And that's important to track if you're interested in all this new stuff that's coming out, all the stuff they're fixing, all the features they're adding. That's a great place to get the latest information right there. At the very beginning of this video, we saw that WebARX can function on not just WordPress, but also PHP, Magento, Drupal, and Joomla. And there's going to be even more options available. There is something called WP Bullet that's being developed by WebARX right now, and that will allow developers to test their plugins and themes for vulnerabilities before they actually release them. And that is fantastic because that will tap into the collective knowledge of all WebARX users, all WebARX firewalls, all WebARX data on vulnerabilities, and you can test your software against those. So developers are going to be making more secure software before they release it. I'm sure you've noticed that if you've used WordPress for a while, when new updates are released, sometimes there are problems with those updates, like security vulnerabilities. SEO Yoast has been known to do things like that over and over. They release new updates that either introduce a security vulnerability or break something else. Happens quite a lot with that plugin. This WP Bullet service will help reduce that because developers can scan their plugins and themes for vulnerabilities before they release them. And WebARX is also developing a bounty program, which is going to focus on finding vulnerabilities in plugins for popular platforms. These platforms that you see here, plus they may be adding more in the future. This bounty program will allow people like you and me, if we accidentally run into a security vulnerability, to let WebARX know so they can fix it. Chances are we wouldn't be doing that, but white hat hackers, ethical hackers, researchers, they'd be able to use this bounty program to report vulnerabilities. If those vulnerabilities are confirmed to be real vulnerabilities, they will get a payout. They'll get actual money for reporting that vulnerability. And what that enables is they make a few dollars, but the big win is that WebARX is on top of all the latest vulnerabilities that possibly nobody else knows about at that time. But WebARX already knows. And so they're trying to be on top of the game. They're trying to have as much data as possible to fight off as many vulnerabilities as possible. So if you're interested in WebARX, what it can do for you, you can head over to webarxsecurity.com. There's a link in the description down below. You can start your 14-day free trial and see how it works on your site. See if it's actually something your site may need or benefit from. On the pricing page, we see how much it costs. Here we have 3 payment options. One is per site per month, paid monthly, which is $15 for all the features we went through. This site here is paid annually, so this is $12.74 per month, currently a 15% discount for the annual pricing. if you use the discount code that I've negotiated for you, it's in the description down below, you can get a 35% discount on the annual plans, which is going to make it substantially cheaper. And if you have an agency, need lots of websites running on here, 50 plus websites, you can apply for a demo and get custom pricing on a per website basis. Website security is very important. WebARX takes all of the work off your back and makes your life a whole lot easier. That's one of the main reasons I use them for my websites, and I recommend them because I haven't had any issues with their software, and I quite like how it does all the work for me, essentially. So that's how WebARX works and all the benefits it can provide to your site if you want it to. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And next up is watching this video right up here, which shows you the top 10 security mistakes that I see over and over and over and over on WordPress sites that I work on. And this video down here is the one that YouTube thinks you should watch. And until next time, keep crushing it, and I will see you in the next video.